Forest Mysteries. Liam Carter paused, the icy wind slicing through his jacket as he knelt in the snow, eyes narrowing at the strange tracks pressed into the untouched white surface. Dawn's weak light cast long, pale shadows between the silent trees, the forest holding its breath. His breath fogged briefly before vanishing into the crisp air, and the only sounds were the faint creak of shifting snow beneath his boots and the distant tapping of a woodpecker. He reached out cautiously, brushing away frost to examine the footprints more closely. They were unlike any he'd seen. Massive paw prints, deeper than typical deer or fox tracks, yet too small for a bear. The pattern was uneven, as if the creature had wandered uncertainly, stopping frequently. Liam's brow furrowed. The snow, usually pristine at this hour, was marred by irregular impressions, some overlapping, others leading into the shadows of the woods. He had seen enough to know this wasn't natural. A prickling unease settled in his gut. The peaceful serenity of the forest had been disturbed, and his instincts sharpened. These tracks suggested purpose, deliberate, almost intelligent. He scanned the surroundings, noting the disturbed snow and the faint impressions that hinted at a creature trying to hide or perhaps warn. The air felt thick, charged with an unspoken threat. He stood slowly, muscles tense, and took a cautious step forward. The snow crunched beneath him, each sound amplified in the silence. The trail wound deeper into the woods, weaving past clusters of pines and fallen logs. Liam hesitated, then pressed on, driven by a mixture of curiosity and instinct. Ignoring the biting wind tugging at his hair, he kept his eyes on the ground, every sense alert. As he advanced, the trail grew more complex. A faint scrape on a tree trunk caught his attention, sharp, unnatural, as if something had been rubbed or clawed at it. He reached out, fingertips brushing the rough bark, feeling a subtle tremor of apprehension. The forest around him seemed to hold its breath, shadows lengthening as the weak sunlight struggled through the canopy. Every snap of a twig sounded disproportionately loud. Suddenly, the trail veered toward a small clearing, where the snow was disturbed more heavily. Clumps of earth and broken branches littered the white expanse. Liam crouched, kneeling in the snow, examining the chaos. A dark smear stained the ground, dried and darkening in the cold, resembling blood. His stomach clenched. Was this evidence of a fight? A predator defending its kill? Or something else entirely? He felt a shiver crawl up his spine. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him. The forest seemed to exhale, settling into an unnatural silence, as if holding its breath. His gaze darted for more clues, any sign of what had transpired. The trail vanished at the edge of the clearing, swallowed by dense undergrowth, but the tension in his chest refused to dissipate. Reaching into his pocket, Liam pulled out a small notebook, flipping it open to record observations. His fingers stiff from the cold, he managed to sketch the footprints, noting their size, shape, and the peculiar pattern. The markings hinted at something unusual, something not entirely animal, yet not fully human. Questions flooded his mind. What creature was this? Why was it here? What was it hiding? A sudden gust of wind carried a strange, primal scent, metallic, wild, unsettling. Liam's senses sharpened further. His hand instinctively moved toward his rifle, hanging from his shoulder, the weight reassuring against the unknown threat lurking in the shadows. Every fiber of his being urged him to retreat, to leave the scene behind, but an irresistible pull pushed him onward. He moved carefully around the disturbed snow, eyes scanning the trail ahead. The footprints seemed to beckon him, leading deeper into the forest's heart. The usual sounds, the rustling leaves, distant bird calls, were replaced by an oppressive silence, broken only by the faint scuffing of paws in the snow. A sudden shift in the wind brought a faint whisper of movement. Liam froze, every nerve alert. Somewhere nearby, something had shifted, an unseen presence, watching, waiting. His heartbeat quickened, yet he maintained a calm exterior, steadying his breathing. The woods around him seemed alive, almost sentient, as if the trees themselves were whispering secrets he couldn't hear. He took a cautious step forward, then another. The trail curved toward a dense thicket where the snow was heavily trampled. Peering into the darkness beneath the branches, he searched for signs of movement or further clues. Silence stretched on, heavy and unyielding. A faint prickling at the back of his neck signaled he was being watched, eyes unseen, observing from the shadows. His breath hitched slightly, but he forced himself to remain composed. The forest's unpredictability had always been a challenge, but now it felt alive with something unfamiliar, an energy that unsettled him deeply. His mind raced. The footprints, the bloodstains, the strange scent, all pointed to something extraordinary. Was a creature, a human, or something else entirely? The questions gnawed at him, each more urgent than the last. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the trees, carrying a faint, almost imperceptible whisper, an invitation or a warning. Liam hesitated, torn between curiosity and caution. The forest was holding its secrets tight, and he was only beginning to grasp their depth. The trail ahead beckoned, promising answers but threatening danger. In that moment, a new realization struck him. The clues he had uncovered suggested he was not alone. Something had been here, something that had fought, fled, or perhaps watched him from the shadows. His sense of control was slipping. The trail was more than just animal tracks. It was a sign of a presence that defied explanation. He tightened his grip on the rifle, his knuckles whitening. His eyes flicked over the trail, then into the darkness beyond, searching for movement. The forest seemed to pulse with an unspoken warning. Whatever lay ahead, it was no longer just about investigation. It was about survival. As he moved forward, the trail twisted into a thick thicket where broken branches and disturbed snow hinted at recent activity. Liam stepped cautiously, every sense heightened. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the faint scuff of paws and the distant, irregular crack of twigs. He knew he was close to something important, something that could change everything he believed about this place. A sudden gust of wind brought a faint, metallic scent, a reminder that violence had already touched this scene. Liam's grip on his weapon tightened. He was no longer just tracking footprints. He was chasing a mystery that threatened to unravel his understanding of the woods and himself. He paused, listening. The forest around him was alive with whispers, unseen eyes watching, secrets waiting to be uncovered. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. Whatever was out there, he had to face it. The trail beckoned him onward, deeper into the shadows, where the unknown waited with bated breath. Liam froze as a faint rustling sound drifted through the trees, the subtle whisper of movement just beyond his sight. The midday sun pierced through the canopy, casting flickering shadows that danced across the undergrowth. Yet a cold, prickling sensation crept along his skin, heightening his alertness. His eyes darted around, searching for the source of the noise, heart pounding steadily in his chest, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of uncertainty. He took a cautious step forward, muscles coiled, ears tuned for any further disturbance. The air carried a sharp metallic scent, fresh blood, intertwined with the earthy aroma of damp leaves and moss. The smell was unmistakable, a visceral reminder that violence had recently unfolded here. His gaze fixed on the ground where torn grass and snapped twigs formed a chaotic mosaic. The trail was now more disturbed, more aggressive in its pattern. A few meters ahead, broken branches lay strewn across the path, jagged scars in the earth. Liam lowered himself, fingertips brushing the bark of a nearby tree. The scrape was recent, reddish streaks contrasting starkly against the pale bark, as if someone had clawed at it in desperation or fury. His breath hitched slightly. The evidence pointed to a struggle, a frantic attempt to escape or defend. He scanned the surroundings again, senses heightened. The woods seemed to hold their breath, shadows deepening as the wind stirred the treetops. Somewhere distant, a bird called, but its cries sounded hollow, disconnected from the tension tightening in his chest. Every instinct screamed caution. This was no longer just a trail, but a scene of violence, possibly involving an intelligent adversary. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught his eye. Something small darted behind a dense shrub. His body tensed immediately, eyes narrowing. The bush rustled, but no figure emerged. Instead, a fleeting glimpse of white fur or fabric disappeared into the greenery. His mind raced. Was it an animal or something more sinister? The thought sent a shiver down his spine. He knelt further, focusing on the bloodstains on the ground. They were fresh, still glossy and wet. Someone had been here moments ago, fighting or fleeing. The irregular pattern of the spatters suggested multiple encounters. Panicked, unpredictable. His stomach clenched, yet he forced himself to stay calm. Whoever or whatever caused this was nearby, lurking just out of sight. A subtle noise broke the silence, an almost inaudible shuffling, like a heavy breath caught behind a curtain of leaves. Liam held his breath, ears straining. The sound was deliberate, slow, as if someone was trying to conceal their presence. Every hair on his body bristled. His hand moved instinctively toward his backpack, fingers trembling slightly as he grasped the worn leather strap, seeking reassurance. He hesitated, weighing whether to advance or retreat. The growing sense of being watched pressed down on him, thickening the atmosphere. The forest around him seemed to darken, shadows stretching like silent sentinels. The wind shifted, bringing with it a faint metallic scent, blood, rust, something sharp. It was as if the woods themselves warned him to turn back, to abandon his search. But Liam's resolve hardened. Turning away now would leave the mystery unresolved, perhaps endangering others who might come here later. He took a slow step forward, eyes fixed on the trail ahead, searching for more clues. A faint set of footprints veered off the main path into a thicket, smaller and lighter, possibly belonging to a person trying to hide or a creature scurrying away. The trail was faint but discernible in the damp earth. The shuffling resumed, more deliberate, more insistent. Shadows lengthened as the woods grew darker, the trees seeming to close ranks around him. His grip on the backpack tightened, knuckles whitening. Each breath was measured, each step cautious. The feeling of unseen eyes watching him intensified, prickling along his neck. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw it, a glint, a flash of metallic reflection among the leaves. His gaze snapped toward the object, and he crouched low, reaching out with tentative fingers. It was a small, tarnished piece of metal, perhaps part of a tool or a fragment of jewelry. It lay half buried in the dirt, overlooked by inattentive eyes. His fingertips brushed the cold surface, and a jolt ran through him. This fragment was a piece of a larger puzzle. The blood, the footprints, the signs of struggle, they all hinted at a story unfolding just beyond his grasp. The clues pointed toward an orchestrated event, not mere chance. Suddenly, a sharp movement behind him made his heart leap. He spun around instinctively. A shadow darted past, silent and swift. His stomach clenched, but he kept his stance steady. Whatever it was, it vanished into the trees again, leaving only the faint echo of its passage. The woods seemed to close tighter, the oppressive silence broken only by the distant crack of a branch underweight. A deliberate sound, as if someone was deliberately alerting their presence. His eyes darted to the trail again, noticing a faint set of footprints leading deeper into the thicket. The pattern was different, smaller, lighter, more cautious. Whoever or whatever had been here was deliberately hiding, trying to evade detection. The trail led into a denser part of the forest, where shadows thickened and the canopy darkened. A sudden gust of wind carried a new scent, damp earth, blood, and something metallic. It felt like a warning, a sign that he was intruding into something dangerous. But instead of retreating, Liam pressed on, driven by a need for answers. Turning back now would leave the mystery unresolved and possibly allow the threat to remain at large. He moved carefully, each step deliberate, eyes scanning the ground for more clues. A faint trail of footprints veered off the main path, leading into the undergrowth. They were smaller, lighter, possibly belonging to a person trying to conceal their presence or an animal fleeing the scene. The trail was faint but unmistakable in the muddy soil. As he advanced, the shuffling sound resumed, more insistent. The woods seemed to darken further, shadows gathering like silent witnesses. His grip on the backpack tightened, knuckles tense. Every sense was on high alert. Somewhere in the distance, a branch snapped under weight, sharp and sudden, breaking the fragile silence. Liam's pulse quickened. Another flicker of movement appeared, this time further down the trail. A figure or creature, if it was one, was playing a game of hide and seek. The uncertainty gnawed at him, but he knew he couldn't hesitate. The evidence pointed to something intelligent and dangerous, lurking just out of sight, watching. A sudden shift in the wind brought a new, sharper scent. Damp earth, blood, and metallic tang. It was as if the forest itself was warning him to turn back, to abandon his pursuit. But Liam's resolve refused to waver. Turning away now would mean leaving the story unfinished, risking further danger. He took a slow, deliberate step forward, eyes fixed on the faint trail ahead. The footprints led into a dense thicket, smaller and lighter than the others. The pattern suggested someone, or something, was trying to hide, to escape detection. The trail was faint but clear enough in the muddy ground. The shuffling sound grew louder, more deliberate. Shadows stretched long, the forest seeming to lean in, watching. His grip on the strap of his pack tightened as he approached, every nerve on edge. The prickling on his neck intensified, a visceral reminder that he was no longer alone. Then, a glint caught his eye, a metallic fragment among the leaves. His gaze locked onto it, and he crouched, fingertips brushing the cold metal. It was a small, tarnished piece, possibly part of a tool or jewelry. It lay half buried, unnoticed by anyone not paying close attention. This fragment, along with the bloodstains and footprints, formed a narrative of violence and concealment. The pieces fit together, suggesting a struggle that was carefully staged or at least deliberately concealed. Liam's mind raced. Who was here? Why did they fight? What had they fled from? A sudden movement behind him made him spin. A shadow flickered past, silent and swift. His heart lurched, but he held his ground. The figure disappeared into the trees, leaving only a whisper of movement. The woods grew darker, the silence thickening, as if the forest itself was alive with unseen eyes. Liam exhaled slowly, fighting the rising wave of unease. His thoughts spun. Was this the work of a human predator or something else? Each clue pointed to a calculated act, a story unfolding in the shadows. He realized that the trail was not just a sign of flight, but a deliberate pattern, an orchestrated game. He straightened, eyes sweeping the undergrowth one last time. The bloodstains, torn branches, and footprints beckoned him deeper into the darkness. The feeling of being watched persisted, as if the forest harbored secrets that refused to stay hidden. Something was waiting just beyond the veil of daylight, and it knew he was here. With renewed resolve, Liam stepped into the shadows, knowing that each move brought him closer to uncovering the truth and closer to danger. The woods had transformed into a labyrinth of uncertainty, but he was determined to unravel its mysteries, whatever the cost. Liam's breath came in steady puffs as he paused, fingers gripping the rough bark of the tree, feeling the cool texture beneath his fingertips. The fading twilight cast long, shifting shadows across the forest floor, and a gentle breeze stirred the canopy, rustling leaves and snapping twigs. Every nerve in his body was taut, yet an unsettling stillness hung in the air, an oppressive silence that seemed to press against him more heavily than the encroaching darkness. His eyes darted from the faint footprints in the snow to the surrounding shadows, analyzing every movement, every flicker of light. He moved cautiously, aware that the recent disturbance had left behind clues worth scrutinizing. The animal tracks crisscrossed with deliberate human footprints, fresh, unmistakable, and oddly juxtaposed. The snow here was patchy, melted by a recent warm spell, but the impressions pressed into the icy crust betrayed more than coincidence. These signs suggested a purposeful presence, perhaps someone tracking him or hiding nearby. A faint flicker of movement caught his eye. Instinctively, he tensed, muscles coiling in readiness. Behind a dense thicket of bushes, shadows seemed to ripple, a subtle disturbance in the otherwise still forest. Liam's gaze sharpened, narrowing as he focused on that elusive spot. The air thickened with anticipation, and he pressed his back against the rough trunk, ears straining for any sound beyond the whisper of wind. Suddenly, a gust swept through the trees, causing dry leaves to flutter down in a cascade. The noise was sharper than expected, each crackle and snap echoing unnaturally in the quiet evening. Liam reached for his flashlight, fumbling as he activated it. The beam cut through the gloom with a cold, piercing glare sweeping across the undergrowth. It revealed tangled roots, shifting shadows, but nothing out of the ordinary. His pulse quickened when he detected a faint, almost imperceptible scrape, a subtle disturbance like a slight shift in the underbrush or the faintest sound of movement. He froze, every sense heightened, ears twitching at the tiniest noise. The bushes remained still, yet a strange prickling sensation crept over his skin, as if unseen eyes watched him from the darkness. He slowly turned his head, scanning the area again. The shadows seemed to deepen and stretch, wrapping around him like unseen claws. His eyes flicked over the trees and undergrowth, searching for the source of that unsettling feeling. Nothing appeared to move, but the sensation persisted, growing more insistent, a sign that he was not alone. A sudden, sharp prickling ran down his spine, like a gentle finger brushing his shoulder. His heart skipped a beat, and without thinking, he spun around, flashlight swinging wildly. Behind him, only empty air greeted his gaze. The forest seemed to pulse with silent vigilance, as if alive with unseen awareness. A cold shiver ran through him, and he instinctively tightened his grip on the flashlight. His mind raced to interpret the strange sensation. Was it merely paranoia, or was something truly present? The woods had a way of playing tricks, but this feeling was different, more deliberate, more threatening. A realization dawned. He was being watched, and the observer was aware of his presence. He lowered the beam slightly, trying to steady his trembling hands. His eyes returned to the ground, where the tracks converged, animal and human, forming a confusing tangle. The signs of disturbance, the strange footprints, and now this pervasive sense of unseen observation all pointed to one conclusion. Someone was here, and they knew he was nearby. A sudden gust of wind pushed past him, causing the trees to sway and branches to creak ominously. The noise sounded almost like a whisper, an unspoken message carried in the rustling leaves. Liam's gaze darted back to the shadows, searching for movement, but found only darkness. The oppressive silence returned, heavy and unyielding, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. He took a cautious step back, every muscle tense. The feeling of being watched persisted, an almost tangible static prickling across his skin. His thoughts raced. Was this a warning, a trap, or simply a trick of the mind? The line between reality and illusion blurred, yet the sense of unseen eyes watching him remained unshakable. Then, a faint rhythmic tapping echoed through the woods, distant yet steady, like a heartbeat in the night. Liam's grip tightened on his flashlight, contemplating whether to follow the sound or retreat. Before he could decide, a quick movement flashed behind a tree, a shadow darting swiftly and vanishing into the darkness. His stomach clenched at the suddenness. This time, the sensation was no longer vague. It felt real, tangible. Something was nearby, observing, waiting. The question hung unspoken. Who or what was it? And why had it chosen this moment to reveal itself so subtly? He forced himself to breathe deeply, steadying his trembling limbs. The forest silence returned, thick and absolute, yet beneath it, the faintest sign of movement persisted, a reminder that the unseen watcher was still there, lurking in the shadows. Liam understood, with a growing certainty, that this encounter was only the beginning of a deeper, more complex mystery. His knowledge had shifted. He now realized he was being deliberately stalked, and the presence was aware of his every move. His eyes flicked to the ground once more, studying the tangled tracks and disturbed earth. The signs pointed to a calculated act. Someone or something had been tracking him, perhaps waiting for the right moment to strike or reveal itself. The metallic tang in the air, subtle yet persistent, now made sense. It was a trace of something unfamiliar, an ominous hint of danger. A sudden shift in the wind carried a faint, metallic scent, sharp and cold, rising from the ground. Liam's senses sharpened. The environment was changing. The forest was no longer just a silent witness, but an active participant in this game. He realized that the signs weren't random. They were messages, warnings, or perhaps invitations. He stepped away from the tree, moving cautiously toward the deeper shadows, trying to locate the source of the metallic smell. His eyes caught a faint glint among the roots, something discarded, perhaps a piece of metal or a fragment of equipment. As he moved closer, he noticed fresh footprints leading away from the tracks, heading deeper into the woods. Someone had recently passed through here, deliberately trying to cover their trail or draw him into a trap. A sudden noise behind him, a low, deliberate crack, made him spin around. His flashlight illuminated nothing but the darkness, but the feeling of being watched intensified. The metallic scent grew stronger, and with it, the sense that he was being drawn into a web of unseen danger. He realized that his initial suspicion of a mere observer had evolved. This was no random threat. Someone had been tracking him, perhaps waiting for him to come closer to make a mistake. The signs pointed to an intelligent adversary, one who understood the terrain, the signs, and his movements. His mind raced for options. Retreating now might mean losing the trail entirely, but rushing forward could be a trap. He needed to find the source, confront it, or outmaneuver it. His grip on the flashlight tightened as he took a slow step toward the deeper shadows, eyes scanning for movement. Suddenly, a faint, rhythmic tapping echoed again, closer this time. It was not random noise, but deliberate, almost like a signal. Liam's instincts told him that whatever was watching was trying to communicate or lure him in. He hesitated, weighing his options, knowing that every second counted. Then, from behind a thick trunk, a figure emerged, silent, motionless. Its outline was obscured, but the presence was unmistakable. Liam froze, realizing that the game had entered a new, more dangerous phase. The figure did not attack, but simply observed, its intent unreadable. The metallic scent was now overwhelming, and Liam understood that this encounter was no longer about mere suspicion. It was about survival. With a steadying breath, he raised his flashlight, aiming it directly at the figure. The beam caught a glimpse of a face, pale, expressionless, eyes glinting with an unreadable purpose. The figure did not speak, did not move, but its silent vigil conveyed a message. The game was on, and the forest's secrets were about to be revealed. Liam's perception had shifted from cautious investigation to a confrontation with something far more deliberate and dangerous. He lowered the flashlight slightly, eyes locked on the figure, knowing that his understanding of the situation had changed irrevocably. Whatever lay ahead, he was no longer just an observer. He was now part of a silent, deadly pursuit. The shadows around him seemed to pulse with anticipation, and he realized that this was only the beginning of a deeper, more unsettling mystery. one that would challenge everything he thought he knew about the woods, himself, and the unseen forces lurking in the darkness. Liam's breath fogged in the icy air as he paused on the narrow trail, snow crunching softly beneath his boots. The darkness pressed in from all sides, pierced only by the faint, trembling glow of distant stars. The forest around him was eerily silent, save for the whisper of wind slipping through the trees. Every instinct urged him to stay alert, yet a growing sense of unease gnawed at his confidence. He studied the footprints ahead, their edges blurred by fresh snow, but still discernible. Moments ago, the trail had been clear. Now, it seemed to dissolve into the blackness, swallowed by the shadows. His fingers tightened around the flashlight's handle as he hesitated, the beam flickering before he clicked it on, piercing the darkness with a cold, sharp glow. The tracks led into the undergrowth, then abruptly vanished. No sign of disturbance, no broken twigs, no displaced snow, just emptiness. Liam's eyes darted around, scanning the surrounding trees and bushes, searching for movement or any sign of recent activity. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the faint settling of snow and his shallow, uneven breathing. Suddenly, a faint flicker of movement caught his eye, a subtle shadow shifting behind a nearby bush. His body tensed instinctively. He froze, narrowing his eyes. The shadow darted away before he could identify it, dissolving into the darkness like a fleeting ghost. His grip on the flashlight tightened, instinctively raising it higher. The beam swept through the branches, revealing only the silent, frost-covered landscape. Cautiously, he stepped closer, each movement deliberate. The snow beneath his boots cracked softly, betraying his presence. He crouched, brushing aside a thin layer of snow to examine the ground more carefully. The disturbed snow here was uneven, with irregular patterns suggesting recent movement. Perhaps someone or something had paused or passed through. Yet, no footprints remained. The trail had vanished entirely. A sudden gust of wind swept past, causing a shiver to crawl up his spine. He pulled his jacket tighter, feeling the weight of the night pressing against him. Every sense sharpened, but the forest offered no answers. Only the oppressive silence and the unspoken secrets lurking within. He looked around again, searching for clues. The snow was pristine except for a faint smear, a dark streak that seemed unnatural against the white. He leaned in closer, eyes narrowing. The smear was faint, almost smeared into the snow, but it hinted at a struggle that had left no footprints, only an uneven blotch of blood or dirt. His heart quickened. The signs pointed to recent violence. He examined the area more carefully, noticing a faint, irregular pattern in the snow, like something had been dragged or pushed. As he studied it, he spotted a thin, dark stain, a smear of blood that had begun to dry, evaporating into the cold air. The discovery sent a ripple of tension through him. The trail was truly gone here, replaced by this ominous sign. Whatever had caused this disturbance was still nearby, perhaps watching. His mind raced to piece together what had happened. Was it an animal, a human, or something else entirely? The thought tightened his stomach. The forest's dangers were more than he had anticipated, and each step deeper into the shadows only heightened his vigilance. A distant crack broke the silence sharply. His muscles tensed immediately. He spun around, sweeping his flashlight across the trees. Nothing, just the whisper of wind and the creak of branches. He held his breath, listening. Then, a faint rustling behind him, like a branch snapping under weight, made him whirl around. His flashlight beam flickered wildly, illuminating only darkness. He saw nothing but the silent woods. The noise had been a false alarm, he told himself, yet a prickling sensation of being watched persisted. He moved cautiously, stepping toward where the trail had vanished. Each step was deliberate, ears strained for any sound. The snow crunched beneath him, loud in the stillness. He paused, listening, but only silence greeted him. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed a faint shimmer, almost imperceptible, glinting between the trees. It was too subtle to be certain, but enough to stir suspicion. His heart hammered as he approached, wary but compelled. Near the shimmer, he found a small patch of disturbed snow. More than a footprint, a deliberate disturbance. As he crouched, trembling fingers brushed aside the snow, revealing a narrow smear of dark liquid, blood, perhaps, evaporating into the cold air. The sign was unmistakable. Something had been dragged or moved here. The realization sharpened his focus. The trail was truly erased, replaced by this ominous clue. His thoughts spun with possibilities: predator, prey, or something unknown. The more he uncovered, the less he understood. He stood slowly, eyes scanning the darkness. Shadows pressed closer, eager to conceal whatever lurked just beyond sight. A creeping awareness settled over him. The presence was still nearby, watching, waiting. The forest had become a living entity, hiding its secrets behind a veneer of silence. Suddenly, a faint noise, like a branch breaking, made him spin around again. His flashlight flickered, the beam darting wildly. For a moment, he saw only darkness. Then, at the edge of his vision, a faint silhouette appeared, just enough to send a jolt through his body. He steadied his breath, heart pounding silently. The woods had shifted. The trail was gone, replaced by an aura of unseen menace. Whatever was lurking had succeeded in erasing the evidence, leaving him stranded at the boundary of understanding. He took a deep breath, fighting the rising tide of doubt. The forest silence pressed heavily, but he forced himself to move forward. Each step was cautious, ears alert for any sound. The snow crunched beneath him, loud in the quiet. He paused again, listening, but only silence responded. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he saw it, a faint glint, almost invisible, flickering between the trees. It was too subtle for certainty, but enough to ignite suspicion. His pulse quickened, and he moved toward it, wary but driven. As he neared, he saw a small, irregular patch of disturbed snow, more than just a footprint. It looked like something had been dragged or pushed aside. He crouched, trembling, and brushed away the snow. Beneath it, a thin smear of dark liquid, blood, began to evaporate into the cold air. The discovery deepened his dread. The trail had been deliberately erased here, replaced by this ominous sign. His mind raced with questions. What had caused this? Why was the trail gone? Was it fear, caution, or something else that kept him rooted? He straightened slowly, eyes scanning the shadows around him. The darkness seemed to press inward, eager to hide what lurked just out of sight. A chilling realization dawned. Whatever caused this disturbance was still nearby, watching, waiting. A faint rustling behind him, a subtle shift, made him whirl around. His flashlight flickered, the beam darting wildly. Only darkness met his gaze. Then, a faint silhouette appeared at the edge of his vision, just enough to spike his pulse. He steadied his breathing, heart pounding in silence. The forest had changed. The trail was gone, replaced by an oppressive sense of unseen danger. Whatever was hiding in the shadows had succeeded in dissolving the evidence, leaving him stranded at the threshold of understanding. Liam's mind sharpened. The mystery had deepened beyond his initial expectations. The forest refused to surrender its secrets easily. The erased trail was no accident. It was a message, a warning, or perhaps a test. Whatever the truth was, it was lurking just beyond his reach, hidden within the darkness that now enveloped him, silent but waiting. Liam paused on the snow-dusted trail, his breath forming fleeting clouds in the cold dusk. Shadows stretched long across the forest floor as the fading light filtered weakly through the sparse canopy. His eyes fixated on the faint imprint of fresh tracks, deeper, more deliberate than anything he'd encountered before. The snow surrounding them was disturbed in a chaotic pattern, torn up as if something massive had recently passed through. He knelt, brushing aside a thin layer of frost, inspecting the prints with careful attention. The tracks pointed toward a jagged outcrop of rocks, an elevated vantage overlooking the surrounding trees. His pulse quickened, not from exertion, but from a rising mixture of curiosity and wariness. These weren't ordinary animal footprints. The claws, the spacing, the pattern, they all hinted at intelligence, purpose. Not just a wandering predator, but something with intent, something that knew where it was headed. A faint, earthy musk drifted on the cold air, musky, primal, with a hint of wildness that made his skin crawl. Liam's senses sharpened as he studied the snow, noticing faint gouges along the edges of the footprints, claw marks, perhaps, or sharp nails digging into the frost. The impressions were recent. He judged them to be no more than an hour old, judging by their crispness. Who, or what had left them? The thought sent a shiver down his spine. A sudden shift in the atmosphere prickled his skin. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Shadows flickered at the edge of his vision like fleeting whispers. Liam froze, his eyes darting toward the darkness, trying to detect movement where silence reigned. Then, just beyond a cluster of trees, he glimpsed a flicker, a flash of dark fur blending into the shadows. A brief, elusive shadow, yet enough to tighten his stomach with unease. He gripped his flashlight more firmly, the trembling hand steadying as he brought the beam to life. It sliced through the gloom, illuminating patches of snow and tangled underbrush. A faint scrape sounded behind him, a branch snapping, or perhaps a step on frozen twigs. Liam spun around, sweeping the light across the trees, ears straining for any sign of sound. Only the whisper of wind and the distant creak of branches answered him. He moved cautiously, edging closer to the outcrop. The rocks were jagged and weathered, offering a vantage point that might reveal more of what lurked nearby. As he approached, he noticed something unusual. Scattered tufts of fur caught in the sparse branches above, tiny clumps clinging to bark. The snow beneath was dotted with dark bloodstains, fresh and vivid against the white. Evidence of recent violence or a struggle, he realized, not far from where he stood. His gaze dropped to the ground, where a faint trail of torn grass and broken twigs wound toward the rocky ledge. The tracks continued up the slope, heading toward the crest. Liam hesitated, weighing his options. He could stay hidden and observe, or follow the trail into the unknown. The latter beckoned him, an opportunity to uncover what was truly happening in this part of the forest. He chose to follow, each step deliberate to avoid disturbing the fragile snow. The cold seeped through his gloves, biting into his skin as icy air pressed against his face. The trail grew more erratic, with signs of something larger moving through. Scuffed bark on nearby trees, scratches that seemed deliberate, as if marking territory or warning others away. His heartbeat quickened, the sensation of being watched intensifying. Suddenly, a rustling broke the stillness. Liam froze, heartbeat pounding in his ears. He turned slowly, shining his flashlight toward the source. A shadow darted behind a thick trunk, a quick, dark movement that vanished before he could get a clear look. His breath hitched, instinctively tightening his grip on the beam. Could it be the same creature that had left the footprints? Or something entirely different? He pressed forward, eyes darting around. The trail led upward, winding toward a narrow cleft in the rocks. As he ascended, he observed more signs. Claw marks gouged into the bark of a fallen tree. Fresh blood smeared along the rocky surfaces. The scent of damp earth and something more animalistic grew stronger, more pungent. Reaching the base of the outcrop, Liam paused, peering into the shadows cast by the rocky overhang. The silence pressed heavily, broken only by the distant howl of a wolf, a long, mournful cry echoing through the trees. His fingers tightened around the flashlight, instinct warning him to stay alert. A flicker of movement caught his eye at the edge of his vision. Heart pounding anew, he spun sharply. There, just beyond a cluster of bushes, a dark figure hunched and silent. He aimed the beam, but the figure slipped away into the shadows, vanishing behind a boulder. His stomach clenched. Was this the same creature that left the tracks? Or something else entirely? He hesitated, then moved closer to the rocky ledge's edge. The wind shifted, carrying a strange, almost hypnotic scent, something ancient, primal. It felt as if the forest itself was trying to communicate, to draw him deeper into its mysteries. The footprints, the bloodstains, the fleeting glimpses, they all seemed to form a message, a warning, or perhaps an invitation. Why would these beings, whatever they were, lead him here? What purpose did this place serve? Liam's mind raced, trying to piece together the clues. The sense of danger intensified, but so did his resolve. He had to uncover the truth, no matter how unsettling. As he prepared to descend, a low growl echoed from behind the rocks, muffled but unmistakable. Liam froze again, eyes scanning the darkness. Something was watching him, waiting. Shadows pulsed with life, inviting him closer or warning him to retreat. But he understood now. This was only the beginning. He took a steadying breath, grounding himself. The trail beckoned, and he would follow it into whatever lay ahead. The forest was speaking, and he was determined to listen, to understand its secrets. Suddenly, a faint glow shimmered at the edge of his vision. Liam turned sharply, heart pounding anew. Just beyond a thicket of bushes, something moved, a dark, hunched figure, silent and still. He aimed his flashlight, but the figure slipped away into the shadows, vanishing behind a boulder once more. He hesitated, then edged closer to the ledge's rim. The wind shifted again, carrying a strange, almost hypnotic scent. Something ancient, something that seemed to resonate with the forest's core. The footprints, the bloodstains, the fleeting glimpses, they all pointed to a message, a warning, or perhaps an unspoken call. His mind spun with questions. Why would these creatures, whatever they were, draw him here? What secret did this place hold? The realization dawned that the trail was more than just a path. It was a summons, a challenge. He turned to descend, but a sudden, guttural growl froze him in place. The shadows behind the rocks pulsed, alive and waiting. The forest had spoken, its language primal and raw, and now Liam knew he had to decide, retreat or confront what lurked in the darkness. With a steadying breath, he chose to press on, determined to unravel the mystery. The trail beckoned, and he would follow it into the depths of the forest's secrets. The silence stretched, heavy and expectant, as the shadows shifted and the night deepened around him. Liam's breath condensed in the biting night air as he paused on the jagged outcrop, eyes piercing the darkness below. The moon's pale glow reflected off the snow, casting shifting shadows that danced across the uneven terrain. His fingers clenched involuntarily, not solely from the cold, but from a growing sense of dread that tightened around his chest. The hours since his arrival had unraveled more questions than answers, each clue deepening his suspicion that he was not alone. A sudden gust of wind carried a sharp, metallic scent, smoke. Not the comforting aroma of a campfire, but something acrid and unnatural. Liam inhaled sharply, nostrils flaring as he tried to identify it. The metallic tang mingled with the smell of charred wood, hinting at recent, deliberate burning. His stomach clenched. Someone had been here recently, and their intent was clear. They wanted to conceal their presence. He dropped to his knees on the icy stone, fingertips pressing into the cold surface. Carefully examining the ground, he spotted fresh footprints, no more than an hour old, that veered off from the main trail onto a narrow, less traveled path. The tracks were uneven, hurried, and inconsistent, as if hurriedly made to avoid detection. Human, yes, but with signs of nervousness, perhaps someone fleeing or deliberately trying to hide their trail. His eyes narrowed. Liam traced the footprints cautiously, each step muffled by the snow. They wound through sparse bushes and along the cliff's edge, leading toward a cluster of gnarled trees. Near one of these, he noticed a fresh scratch gouged into the bark, a jagged scar that seemed deliberately made. The bark was torn, deep and uneven, as if a warning or a message. His pulse quickened. He reached out, fingertips brushing the scar tree. The deliberate markings suggested a sign, perhaps a warning or a message to someone else. His mind raced to connect the dots. Who would come here at this hour? And for what purpose? A faint rustling sound broke the silence, distant yet unmistakable. Liam froze, muscles tensing, his senses sharpened, every nerve alert. He thought he caught a whisper of movement behind him, but when he spun around, only shadows flickered in the darkness. His flashlight beam cut through the gloom, revealing nothing but empty space. He lowered the light, listening intently, heart pounding. The forest seemed to hold its breath again, save for the occasional gust rattling the sparse branches. He cast his gaze downward, noticing a faint disturbance in the snow, an irregular trail of displaced flakes leading away from the footprints. It was as if someone had tried to erase their tracks, but left behind telltale signs of haste or nervousness. Kneeling, Liam brushed aside the snow with gloved fingers. The ground beneath was damp, sticky, and cold. Suddenly, movement darted behind a nearby bush. a shadow slipping quickly out of sight. Instinctively, he shone his flashlight toward it. The beam caught a fleeting glimpse of dark fur, ears flicking, before vanishing into the undergrowth. A prickling sensation crept up his spine. This was no ordinary animal trail. Someone had been here, someone with knowledge of the forest, someone who left signs, someone watching him now. He slowly rose, trying to steady his breathing. His gaze swept the area, searching for more clues. The scent of smoke grew stronger, and he noticed a faint glow flickering in the distance, likely from a campfire or lantern. That meant people, or at least one person, were nearby. His mind raced. The footprints, the scratch, the fleeting movement, all indicated a deliberate attempt to hide or mislead. Was this the same individual who left the initial signs, or a different observer altogether? Deciding to proceed cautiously, Liam moved along the trail, each step deliberate and silent. His eyes flicked between the ground and the darkness ahead. The distant glow beckoned him, yet hesitation held him back. Trusting his instincts, he chose to approach quietly, hiding behind a cluster of trees to avoid detection. As he drew closer, he spotted a small fire crackling among rocks, shadows flickering around it. A figure hunched over, tending to something in a pot. The silhouette was shrouded in darkness, movements deliberate and careful, yet unmistakably human. Liam's grip tightened on his flashlight. He hesitated, weighing his options. Confrontation could be perilous, but remaining hidden might allow him to gather vital intelligence. He stayed concealed, watching intently. Suddenly, the figure looked up, eyes reflecting the firelight. Their gaze met Liam's through the darkness for a brief moment. No words were exchanged, but an unspoken acknowledgement passed between them. An alert, a warning, or perhaps an invitation. The wind shifted again, carrying more smoke and a faint scent of ash. Liam's skin prickled anew, as if unseen eyes watched him. The sense of being observed intensified, forcing him to question everything he thought he knew about this place and its inhabitants. He faced a choice: stay hidden and observe further, risking discovery, or reveal himself and risk confrontation. His mind replayed the clues, the footprints, the scratch, the fleeting movement, and realized that someone had deliberately left a trail, possibly to lure him closer or to test his resolve. Taking a slow, deliberate step forward, Liam moved cautiously through the snow, each step muffled by the icy crust. As he neared the fire, the figure stirred again, reaching into a satchel. Liam's eyes widened slightly. What were they hiding? Was this person friend or foe? And more critically, what was their purpose here? The fire's glow intensified, casting flickering light over the scene. Liam's heartbeat quickened. He sensed that the next moments would irrevocably alter his understanding of this place. Shadows stretched long and ominous, the forest holding its breath. A subtle shift in the atmosphere told him that the moment of truth was imminent. The trail, the signs, the silent figure, each piece forming a complex mosaic of uncertainty. Someone else was present, their motives potentially darker than he dared to imagine. He paused, weighing his next move carefully. His instincts urged caution, yet curiosity pushed him forward. The night silence thickened with secrets and danger. As the fire flickered one last time, Liam realized the shadows were closing in, and he was no longer alone. Liam's gaze lingered on the horizon, with the first pale streaks of dawn pierced through the sparse canopy. The biting cold had eased slightly, but a persistent shiver ran through his limbs, reinforced by the oppressive silence of the forest. The snow beneath his boots was marred with dark patches, frozen blood that pulsed faintly, whispering of violence just past. His eyes flicked nervously from shadow to shadow, each movement heightened by suspicion. Something was out there, watching. A faint rustle broke the stillness, a subtle shift among the tangled branches. Liam froze, instincts sharpening. His hand instinctively hovered near his waist, fingers brushing the cold metal of his knife. Carefully, he lowered into a crouch, voice barely above a whisper. "Who's there?" Silence answered him, save for the whisper of wind threading through the branches. He narrowed his eyes, scanning the thicket. Then a flicker, a movement faint and quick, pressed low among the bushes, almost blending into the greenery. The figure was hunched, trembling, as if trying to hide or slip away. Liam's pulse quickened, but he moved with deliberate caution, every step measured. As he advanced, the scent of damp earth and dried grass filled his nostrils, layered with something sharper, metallic, unmistakably blood. His gaze caught a splash of crimson on the snow, leading toward a tangle of broken branches and crushed foliage. He crept closer, knees sinking softly into the snow, mindful not to disturb the fragile silence. Suddenly, a faint gasp escaped the figure. Liam's eyes widened slightly. The man was slumped against a thicket, blood seeping from a deep gash across his side. His pallid face was streaked with dirt and sweat, eyes fluttering open and shut in a fight against unconsciousness. His ragged breaths caused his chest to heave, instinctively triggering Liam's protective instincts. "Easy," Liam whispered, kneeling beside him. "You're hurt. I'm here to help." The man's eyes flickered with a mixture of fear and relief. His lips parted, but no words came. After a tense moment, he rasped, "They're after me. Can't let them catch me." Liam's brow furrowed. "Who's after you? What happened?" The man's gaze darted around, as if expecting enemies to materialize from the shadows. His trembling hand fumbled into his coat pocket, clutching something tightly. Liam instinctively shifted closer, eyes fixed on his movements. A crumpled piece of paper emerged, grasped desperately, as if it was a lifeline. Liam carefully took it, unfolding it with gentle fingers. The paper was stained and frayed at the edges, but the hurried handwriting was clear. Asterisk, they're watching. Trust no one. Find the evidence. Asterisk. A chill ran down Liam's spine. The message confirmed that this wasn't a random attack, but part of something more sinister. The man's trembling grip tightened as he reached out, clutching Liam's sleeve with desperate strength. "Help me," he rasped, voice cracking. "They'll kill me if I stay. You're the only one who can stop this." Liam hesitated, weighing caution against compassion. The man's face was raw, eyes pleading with genuine fear. His clothes were torn, dirt smudged across his face, blood staining his shirt. The desperation was unmistakable. "Who's after you?" Liam pressed softly, voice low. "And what's this evidence?" The man's lips trembled before he managed. "Corruption in the town. I found something, a secret they don't want exposed. That's why they're hunting me. I saw too much." Liam's jaw clenched. The words confirmed his suspicions that this was no ordinary forest mystery. Someone in the town was entangled in something dark, dangerous enough to chase a man into these woods? He looked around, assessing the surroundings for signs of pursuit. No distant footsteps, no voices, only the oppressive silence. The faint crackle of dry twigs beneath their feet sounded deafening in the quiet. Without hesitation, Liam reached for the man's arm, helping him into a seated position. "You're safe for now, but I need to get you out of here. Can you walk?" The man nodded weakly, grimacing as he tried to stand. Liam supported him, guiding him toward the thicker trees where the canopy provided some cover. Every step was cautious, mindful of his injured companion's fragile state. His mind spun with questions. Who exactly was hunting this man, and what secret was so vital it risked their lives? They moved deeper into the woods, Liam's senses alert. The first light of dawn seeped through the branches, casting a pale glow over their path, but doing little to dispel the shadows of suspicion that clung to the air. The injured man leaned heavily on Liam, each movement betraying his exhaustion and pain. A sudden sound, a faint rustle, closer now, made Liam freeze. His instincts kicked in. He scanned the foliage, trying to pinpoint the source. A flicker of movement, a shadow slipping behind a trunk. His grip tightened on the injured man. "Stay close," Liam whispered. "We're not alone." A new realization dawned. Whoever was after this man was still nearby, watching, waiting. The woods had become a battleground of secrets, and Liam was now caught in a web far more intricate than he'd imagined. The line between friend and foe blurred as he fought to keep both himself and his companion alive. As they pressed onward, the dawn's light painted the forest in shades of gold and crimson, yet beneath the trees, shadows remained thick and unyielding. The mystery deepened, and Liam understood. Nothing would be the same after this day. Liam crouched behind a fallen log, his breath forming icy clouds as the wind whistled through the skeletal branches. The flickering flames of the small fire cast uneven shadows across his face, illuminating the snowdrifts and the battered figure lying nearby. The night pressed in from every side, silent, oppressive, filled with unseen threats. The crackling fire was his only shield against the darkness, its warmth a fragile comfort amid the cold and uncertainty. He studied the stranger's pallid face, noting the shallow rise of his chest. The injuries were severe, deep gashes and bruises, but not immediately fatal. Still, leaving him here was unthinkable. Not tonight. Not when every sound could be a predator lurking just beyond the shadows. Liam's jaw clenched as doubt gnawed at him. Trust was a rare commodity in these woods, easily shattered by betrayal or desperation. Yet, here he was, weighing the risk of helping a stranger who might turn on him. A sudden gust stirred the trees, their branches groaning like ancient sentinels warning him to reconsider. Liam reached out cautiously, brushing snow from the man's blood-stained face, feeling for any sign of life. The steady rhythm of his breathing reassured him, still alive, still fighting. The scent of blood mingled with the cold air, sharp and metallic. He knew he couldn't carry him far. Too much weight, too many risks of exposure or detection. But abandoning the injured now would be cowardice, and cowardice was a luxury he couldn't afford. He inhaled deeply, grounding himself in resolve. Carefully, he moved closer, rummaging through his pack for supplies, clean cloth, a small knife, a flask of water. His hands trembled slightly as he pressed a damp cloth against the stranger's thigh, applying pressure to slow the bleeding. The man stirred, a faint groan escaping his lips, and Liam held his gaze, whispering, "Stay with me. I won't leave you." As he worked, Liam's mind raced through possible motives. What had brought this man here? Was he fleeing from enemies? Or perhaps something darker? The questions pressed on him, but he pushed them aside, focusing on stopping the blood loss and keeping the stranger conscious. Every second counted. The stranger's eyelids fluttered open, revealing bloodshot eyes clouded with confusion and pain. Liam kept his voice calm, steady. "You're safe now. I'm Liam. Can you tell me what happened?" The man nodded faintly, lips trembling as he tried to speak, but was too weak. Liam pressed a clean cloth against the wound again, compressing firmly. The fire's glow flickered, casting sparks that floated upward like fleeting hopes. He watched the stranger's face, noting the flicker of fear and exhaustion. "You're lucky I found you," Liam said softly, "but I need to get you out of here. Can you walk?" The man shook his head slowly, grimacing as pain contorted his features. Liam examined him carefully. Forcing him to move now would worsen his injuries, but hesitation was dangerous. The woods were unpredictable. Every noise could mean danger. He weighed his options, then made a decision. Supporting the man's trembling arm, Liam helped him into a seated position against a tree trunk. "Hold on," Liam urged softly, steadying him. The stranger's head drooped, eyes closing briefly as he fought to gather strength. Liam kept alert, ears tuned to the silence, senses heightened. The trees remained still, but the sense of lurking danger persisted. Something was watching. He quickly searched his pack again, pulling out a cloth soaked in water. Gently, he wiped the blood and dirt from the man's face, trying to soothe him. The stranger exhaled softly, either in relief or pain. Liam couldn't tell. In that quiet moment, a fragile thread of trust formed. A hope that maybe, just maybe, this man's secrets wouldn't be his undoing. Liam reached into his pocket, clutching a worn medallion, a talisman he always carried for reassurance. As he pressed it into his palm, he felt the weight of his responsibility deepen. This was no longer just about survival. It was a moral gamble, risking his safety and conscience. Suddenly, a sharp snap echoed through the trees, breaking the tense silence. Liam froze, instincts sharpening. The woods remained eerily quiet, but he knew better than to trust that calm. Every nerve in his body was on alert, searching for the source of danger. He glanced back at the injured man, whose breathing was steadier, but whose eyes flickered with lingering fear. He tightened his grip on his rifle, instinct overriding caution. The forest was unpredictable. Shadows, sounds, unseen eyes watching. Could he trust this stranger? Could he risk revealing his own secrets? The questions hung heavily in the cold air. Liam shifted into a more defensive stance, shielding the wounded man from the darkness. The fire's glow dimmed as the wind grew sharper, colder. Their fragile moment of safety was only a thin veneer over the chaos lurking beyond. The woods whispered, and somewhere in the shadows, unseen eyes observed. Whatever secrets the stranger carried, whatever truths Liam had yet to uncover, the night was far from over. A rustle nearby made his heart leap, but he held his breath, tense. The silence stretched again, thick and unyielding. Liam's mind raced. Trust versus suspicion, safety versus peril. Every instinct told him this was only the beginning. The real danger lay ahead, hidden in the darkness. Whatever secrets the stranger bore, they would soon surface. And once revealed, nothing would remain the same. In the quiet, Liam's grip on his weapon tightened. He knew the woods well enough to understand that threats came not only from the shadows, but from within himself. Doubts, fears, the temptation to abandon morality for self-preservation. Yet, tonight, he had no choice but to press on, driven by the faint hope that this fragile alliance might lead to something more than just survival. As the wind howled anew and the shadows stretched deeper, Liam made a silent vow. He would protect the stranger, but only until dawn. After that, everything might change: trust, enemies, or perhaps even himself. For now, the night remained an endless, uncertain expanse, and he was determined to face it with cautious resolve. Liam's eyes darted across the shadowed clearing, the dying fire's flicker casting wavering shapes on the snow's surface. The biting wind sliced through the trees, carrying a faint, almost imperceptible murmur, like a distant voice echoing from the unseen. His breath fogged in the cold air, each exhale dissolving into the night's silence, broken only by the rustling of branches. He crouched low, inspecting the disturbed snow where the wounded man had been moments before. The ground was scuffed, smeared, as if hurried footsteps had trampled through. But now, the only sign of recent activity was a trail of uneven footprints leading away from the camp. Small, frantic, almost erratic. Liam clenched his fists, muscles tense, eyes narrowing with suspicion. Where could he have gone? The bloodstains on the snow were fresh, dark against the white. Yet the footprints showed inconsistent weight. Someone had dragged themselves, perhaps injured or exhausted. His instincts prickled. This wasn't an ordinary disappearance. Something had taken him, someone or something. The thought sent a shiver down Liam's spine, sharpening his focus. He pushed himself upright, voice low and deliberate. "Hey, can you hear me? Where are you?" Only the whispering wind responded. Liam listened intently, ears straining, trying to catch any sound beyond his own breath and the faint rustle of leaves. The trail veered toward a dense thicket of tangled branches, low-hanging and ominous. Liam moved cautiously, every step measured. His boots crunched softly on the snow, but the oppressive silence pressed in from all sides, making every movement seem amplified. He knelt, tracing the footprints with gloved fingers, noticing the uneven distribution of weight. Someone had been dragging themselves, possibly injured or too weak to walk properly. A sudden gust of wind caused a branch above to creak and sway. Liam's gaze flicked upward briefly, then returned to the trail. His mind raced. Why would a wounded man venture so far into the dark? Was he fleeing something, or was he being chased? He pressed forward, each step heavier, the silence broken only by the faint crackle of snow beneath his boots. Then, out of the corner of his eye, he caught a flicker of movement behind the thick foliage. His body froze, heart pounding, not from fear, but from heightened alertness. His hand instinctively hovered near his pocket, fingers curling around the cold metal of his flashlight. He shone the beam into the shadows, piercing the darkness with a powerful glow. Nothing but dense leaves and shifting shadows greeted him. Yet a strange feeling of being watched persisted. An unnatural stillness hung in the air, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. His pulse quickened, but he kept the light steady, searching for clues. Suddenly, A faint rustling broke the silence. Sharp, unnatural, deliberate. Liam instinctively crouched lower, muscles coiled. The sound grew closer, like something dragging itself over the snow, slow and purposeful. His eyes darted toward the noise, but nothing appeared. Only the tangled undergrowth, eerily silent now. He hesitated, then took a cautious step forward, every movement deliberate. His gaze swept the ground, seeking fresh signs, blood smears, disturbed snow, broken twigs. There, on a snapped branch, a faint smear of blood pressed against the bark, as if someone had pressed against it in a struggle. His stomach clenched. From the shadows, a fleeting movement caught his eye, a quick, dark shape too swift to identify. His breath hitched, muscles tensing. Was it a person, an animal, or something else entirely? The hairs on the back of his neck prickled. He steadied his breathing, trying to listen past the pounding of his heart. The forest around him seemed to hold its breath. Then a whisper, soft, almost like a hiss, drifted through the trees, carried by the wind. Liam's eyes widened as he glimpsed a flash of dark fur, briefly illuminated by his flashlight's beam. The shape vanished behind a tree, leaving only the echo of its presence. A flicker of doubt crept in. Was this real, or were just the forest's tricks? He shook his head, trying to dismiss the rising dread. No, this was genuine. Something had taken a man, something moving with purpose, silence, and certainty. His jaw tightened, the weight of responsibility pressing down. The trail led deeper into the woods, where shadows thickened and darkness seemed to swallow everything. He knew hesitation could be fatal. The longer he lingered, the more likely whatever was out there could slip away or strike again. The wind picked up anew, swirling around him, tugging at his coat and hair. It carried an unsettling scent, metallic, like blood, mixed with damp earth. His nostrils flared as he inhaled sharply, eyes scanning the terrain. Every sound was amplified. The snap of a twig, the distant cry of a night bird, the faint shuffle of movement. Suddenly, a distant cracking noise echoed through the trees. Liam's body tensed instantly. He crouched behind a fallen log, lowering his flashlight but keeping it ready. His ears strained for any sign of what caused the sound. Was it the wounded man trying to call for help, or something darker lurking? He watched the area intently, breath held, muscles taut. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Then faintly he heard it, a low, guttural growl, almost beneath his hearing. His eyes widened further. The sound was primal, unfamiliar, and unmistakably threatening. He slowly lowered his flashlight, listening. The growl persisted, then faded into the night's silence. Liam knew he faced a choice: pursue the trail further or retreat to reassess. His instincts urged him forward, but caution warned him to hold back. Suddenly, a shadow shifted behind him. A large, dark figure, hunched and furry, moved swiftly. Liam spun around, heart racing, every muscle tense. Only the darkness answered. No attack came, only the oppressive silence. His fingers gripped the flashlight tighter, the beam steady, probing into the shadows. From the corner of his eye, he saw it again, a fleeting glimpse of a massive, shadowy form, quick and hulking, disappearing behind a tree. Every nerve on edge, Liam froze, every sense alert. Was this the creature he sensed earlier, or a predator hiding in the darkness? He took a slow step back, then another, retreating from the immediate threat, eyes fixed on the shadows. His pulse thundered in his ears. The realization struck. Who or what had taken the wounded man was still nearby, watching, waiting, concealed in the gloom. A gust of wind swept through, carrying a faint, metallic scent, blood mixed with damp earth. Liam's grip on his knife tightened instinctively. The footprints had vanished into the night, swallowed by darkness. Whatever was out there had decided to hide, to observe, to strike when least expected. The forest around him seemed alive with unseen eyes. Shadows danced, and the silence grew heavier. Liam felt the weight of unseen presence pressing down, something ancient, lurking just beyond perception. His mind raced, weighing his options: press on into the darkness or withdraw to regroup. He chose to stay, though every nerve was on high alert. His senses sharpened, ears listening for the slightest movement, eyes scanning for the smallest sign of life. The trail might be lost, but the danger was not. Whatever had taken the man was still out there, in the shadows, watching him. A sudden shift in the wind brought a whisper, almost a warning. Liam's skin prickled, and he tightened his grip on his weapon. He knew that the forest was no longer just a place of refuge or mystery. It had become a battleground of unseen forces. The darkness concealed more than he could understand, and he was no longer certain who was predator and who was prey. He stepped back slowly, every sense alert. The shadows ahead flickered once more, an enormous, furry silhouette moving just beyond his line of sight. Liam froze, every muscle coiled, every thought racing. The creature's presence confirmed his suspicion. The threat was real, and it was hunting. He took a cautious, deliberate retreat, keeping his eyes and ears open. The wind carried a faint, metallic scent, blood, and the night's silence was punctuated only by distant, ominous sounds. His mind was clear. He had to find the wounded man, or what remained of him, before the creature or whatever else was out there decided to strike again. As he moved backward into the shadows, Liam understood that the game had changed. The forest was no longer a place of mere danger. It was a domain of predatory silence, where unseen eyes watched every step. He clenched his jaw, determined to uncover the truth, even if it meant facing the darkness alone. Liam moved cautiously through the dense underbrush, the cold air biting at his cheeks as he pressed onward. The moonlight filtered through the branches, casting a pale glow over the uneven trail, which was faintly marked by recent footprints leading toward the abandoned cabin. Every step was deliberate, muffled by the snow beneath his boots, which crunched softly with each movement. The silence of the forest pressed heavily on him, broken only by the whisper of wind through the trees and the distant call of a nocturnal bird. His breath formed fleeting clouds in the crisp air, and his fingers trembled slightly as he tightened his grip on his flashlight. The beam cut uncertainly through the darkness, flickering with each gust. Shadows flickered around him, cast by the swaying branches, and a prickling sensation crawled up his neck, an instinctual alertness that he was being watched. He slowed, ears straining for any unusual sounds. The faint scent of damp wood and pine mingled with the metallic tang of blood, remnants from his earlier investigation, heightening his senses. The footprints were recent, no older than an hour, indicating that whatever had been here was still nearby, possibly watching. A sudden snap echoed behind him. Liam froze instantly, heart pounding louder than before. He spun around sharply, sweeping his flashlight across the darkened trees. Nothing but shifting shadows greeted him. He exhaled slowly, trying to steady his nerves. His eyes returned to the trail, which now disappeared into a tangle of bushes and broken branches, disturbed by recent activity. The wind picked up, whistling through the branches and creating an eerie chorus. Liam's gaze darted across the landscape, searching for movement or signs of life. The forest seemed to hold its breath, the silence oppressive and thick with anticipation. He took a tentative step forward, then another, careful to avoid disturbing the snow too much. The footprints, irregular and hurried, led toward the old cabin ahead, its silhouette looming like a forgotten relic. Its windows were shattered, boards hanging loosely from their frames, and the door sagged on rusted hinges. An unsettling stillness enveloped the structure. As Liam approached, a sudden chill seeped into the air, as if the very atmosphere was pressing down on him. He paused at the threshold, shining his light inside. Darkness swallowed the interior, but faint shapes and shadows hinted at neglect and abandonment. The silence inside was thick, broken only by the settling of the wood. He hesitated, then pushed the door open with a groan. Dust motes floated in the faint moonlight that seeped through gaps in the walls. The floorboards creaked beneath his weight as he stepped inside, eyes sweeping the space. The scent of decay mingled with a faint metallic odor, recent blood perhaps, and his pulse quickened again. Every instinct urged caution, but a sense of urgency pushed him forward. The trail had led him here for a reason. He needed answers. Moving slowly, Liam's flashlight traced the walls, faded wallpaper, remnants of old furniture, a broken chair overturned, a rusty lantern hanging from a hook untouched for years. Dust thickened the air, and silence reigned, oppressive and heavy. Suddenly, a faint noise emanated from the back room, a soft shuffling, almost inaudible but enough to send a shiver down his spine. Liam froze, listening intently. The sound repeated, slightly closer this time, accompanied by a faint scrape of metal against wood. His grip on the knife tightened, fingers trembling but purposeful. He pressed his back against the wall, heart pounding in his ears. Carefully, he crept toward the doorway, the flashlight beam steadying as he peered inside. Shadows danced along the rough walls, illuminated faintly by the moonlight filtering through gaps. The room was cluttered, an old bed, a collapsed shelf, scattered debris. In the corner, a figure hunched over, motionless. Liam's breath hitched, eyes narrowing as he tried to identify it. Was a person? An animal? The shape was indistinct, but the tension in his body told him to prepare for anything. His hand instinctively moved toward his weapon, but he hesitated, wary of provoking a confrontation. The figure suddenly jerked, head lifting slowly. Its eyes reflected the weak glow of the moon. Unfocused, wary, yet unsettlingly aware of his presence. Liam froze, muscles tense, waiting for it to make a move. Before he could react, a rustling sound came from behind, a faint shuffling that set his nerves on edge. Shadows flickered at the edge of his vision, and a low growl echoed from the darkness outside. His stomach clenched. Whatever lurked beyond the thin walls was growing more restless, more aggressive. He took a slow, deliberate breath, trying to steady himself. His grip on the knife tightened as he prepared for what might come next. The figure in front of him shifted slightly, then slowly straightened, its silhouette becoming clearer, an indistinct shape, perhaps a person, perhaps something else. "Who's there?" he called softly, voice barely more than a whisper, trying to mask the tremor in his tone. The figure's head lifted fully, revealing a pair of eyes, uncertain, cautious, yet eerily observant. Liam's pulse quickened, but he held his ground. The silence stretched taut. Suddenly, the figure moved, slowly, deliberately, raising a hand in a non-threatening gesture. Liam's eyes flicked to the doorway, sensing that something was amiss. Outside, the low growl intensified, and shadows shifted again as if something unseen was circling. A faint crack sounded from outside, perhaps a branch breaking or something heavier. Liam's senses sharpened. The feeling of being watched grew stronger. His mind raced. This was no ordinary threat. It was a convergence point, a nexus of secrets and danger. He realized that the trail had brought him here not by chance, but because this place held the answers he sought. The mysterious figure, the sounds, the shadows, they all pointed to something hidden, something that could change everything. His grip on the knife loosened slightly, but his resolve hardened. He needed to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Steadying his breathing, he took a cautious step forward, eyes locked on the figure. "Stay where you are," he ordered, voice firmer now, though his heart hammered at his chest. The figure hesitated, then slowly advanced, hands raised in a non-threatening manner. Every muscle tensed, waiting for the inevitable. Outside, the growl rumbled again, louder this time, echoing through the trees. Liam's gaze flicked toward the door, then back to the figure. He knew the moment was approaching. Whatever was lurking beyond the walls was about to reveal itself. The night had become a battleground of unseen threats, and he was at the center of it. He tightened his grip on his weapon, ready to face whatever emerged from the shadows. The trail had led him to this point, and now the truth was within reach. The line between safety and peril blurred as the darkness pressed in, waiting for him to take the next step. Liam's gaze fixed on the faded, yellowed map sprawled across the battered wooden table, its edges curling and stained with age. The flickering glow of a dying lantern cast shifting shadows over torn papers, rusted tools, and a small, battered notebook filled with hurried sketches and cryptic notes. The air was thick with the scent of damp wood, mold, and something metallic, an acrid, stale tang that seemed to cling to the walls, whispering secrets he couldn't quite decipher. He reached out cautiously, fingertips trembling as he traced the lines on the map, recognizing familiar landmarks: a winding creek, a fallen pine, a sharp bend in the trail. But amid the familiar terrain, strange symbols and annotations caught his eye: crosses, circles, cryptic runes hastily scrawled in a hurried hand. His brow furrowed as he flipped through the notebook's pages, stopping at sketches of footprints, paw prints, and arrows pointing in conflicting directions. Each new detail seemed more suspicious, yet no clear explanation emerged. A faint rustling from the corner of the room snapped him back to the present. Liam froze, eyes narrowing, his instincts sharpened. He knew better than to jump to conclusions, but the hairs on his neck prickled with a premonition. Slowly, he reached for his flashlight, its beam piercing the darkness as he edged toward the source of the sound. The light revealed a cluttered corner filled with dusty shelves, holding rusted cans, broken tools, and a cracked lantern. Among the debris, Partially hidden beneath a torn cloth was a stack of yellowed papers. Liam's pulse quickened as he recognized the edges. Old maps, weathered documents, records written in hurried, uneven handwriting. He brushed aside the cloth, uncovering a handful of pages, the ink faded but still legible. As he read, a cold shiver ran down his spine. The notes described deliberate manipulations, plans to mislead, false trails laid out to confuse anyone following. The words were stark, accusatory. Asterisk, they're watching, guiding, pushing us into the wrong direction. The truth is buried beneath layers of deception. Asterisk, the realization hit him hard. Someone had been orchestrating this entire game, twisting the landscape and the clues to serve their hidden agenda. His eyes darted around, searching for the source of the deception. His gaze settled on a large, folded map pinned to the wall, covered in scribbles, lines crossing out, rerouting, rerunning over the same areas. His fingers traced the convoluted paths, feeling the weight of the truth settling over him. This wasn't just misdirection. It was a calculated effort to control his every move. Suddenly, a subtle movement caught his eye, a shadow slipping behind a row of boxes. His grip tightened on the flashlight, and he stepped closer, voice low and steady. "Who's there? Show yourself." Silence answered him, oppressive and thick. He approached cautiously, the beam revealing a battered cardboard box. Pushing it aside, he uncovered a jumble of old wires, a broken radio, and beneath it, a battered leather journal. Liam hesitated only a moment before flipping it open. The pages were filled with hurried notes, sketches of the forest, and strange symbols. One page drew his attention, a rough sketch of the cabin, with an X mark beside it. Next to the drawing, a note read, "Asterisk, the trap is set. They think I don't see." Asterisk, the handwriting was jagged, desperate. He studied the journal, realizing that whoever had written this had been watching him, leading him along false trails, manipulating his perceptions. The pieces clicked into place, the footprints, the signs of struggle, the hidden clues, all carefully curated to misdirect him. The realization deepened. He was not just chasing clues, but being played like a pawn in a larger game. A sudden creak echoed through the room. Liam spun around, flashlight beam darting across the shadows. From the doorway, a figure emerged, a silhouette cloaked in darkness, motionless, watching. Liam's muscles tensed. "I know you're there. Come out." The figure hesitated briefly, then stepped forward slowly, hands raised in a non-threatening gesture. As it drew closer, Liam saw cold, calculating eyes beneath a hood. The face was partially obscured, but he recognized the sharp features, the same defiance he'd seen before, the same silent challenge. "What do you want?" Liam demanded, voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. The stranger's voice was hoarse, edged with a mocking tone. "You've been chasing shadows, Liam, thinking you're uncovering the truth. But the truth's been right here all along. You just didn't see it." Liam clenched his fists, anger flaring. "Why are you doing this? Who are you?" A faint smile flickered on the stranger's lips. "Let's just say I'm part of the forest secret, and you're meddling in something you don't understand. Everything you've uncovered, those false trails, the fake signs, they're just the beginning." The words hit Liam like a blow, but he kept his stance firm. His mind raced. If this person was behind the deception, then the entire operation was deeper than he'd imagined. Someone was pulling strings, orchestrating the chaos. He took a cautious step forward, voice low and resolute. If you think I'll turn back now, you're mistaken. I'll find out what's really going on, no matter what it costs. The stranger's eyes flickered with something unreadable: contempt, amusement, or perhaps both. Be careful, Liam. The deeper you go, the more you'll wish you hadn't. Because what's waiting isn't just the truth. It's something far darker. Liam's jaw tightened. He sensed he was at a crossroads. His hand hovered near his belt, ready to draw if needed. The flickering lantern cast long shadows across the room, emphasizing the growing tension. In that moment, he understood that nothing was as straightforward as it seemed. The false trails, the hidden clues, they all pointed toward a mastermind, someone who understood the forest secrets better than anyone and was determined to keep them hidden at all costs. The web of deception was more intricate than he had thought, and he was now entangled in it. He looked directly into the stranger's eyes. Tell me everything you know. If I'm going to stop this, I need the full story. The figure hesitated, then nodded slowly. All right, but once you learn the truth, there's no turning back. As the night stretched on, Liam listened, each word pulling him deeper into the labyrinth of lies. Shadows danced across the walls, and beneath the surface of his awareness, a single thought took root. He was no longer just chasing footprints or signs. He was hunting an unseen enemy, someone who knew the forest's secrets intimately and was determined to keep them concealed at any cost. Liam's breath caught as the first rays of dawn pierced the canopy, spilling golden light across the forest floor. The air was unexpectedly warm, carrying the faint melodies of awakening songbirds that fluttered through the branches. His gaze drifted over the horizon, where familiar silhouettes of distant hills blurred with the promise of change. The heaviness of recent days pressed down on him, yet amidst the weight, a sharp clarity sharpened his mind. This moment would determine everything. He stepped forward cautiously, each footfall muffled by damp earth, sensing a subtle tremor of anticipation coursing through his veins. The forest seemed to pulse with him, leaves whispering softly in the breeze, as if urging him onward. Shadows clung to the edges of his vision, remnants of the darkness he had fought through, but now the light pressed insistently, promising renewal and resolution. Ahead, an open clearing bathed in morning glow stretched out, where the distant hills seemed to dissolve into infinity. It was here, amid this tranquil expanse, that he faced the culmination of his journey. His mind replayed the tangled web of threats, secrets, and lies woven through these woods. Each step, each choice leading him to this crossroads. With a steady hand, he reached into his coat pocket and grasped the small, worn token he had kept close all along, feeling its familiar contours. The decision hovered before him, weighty yet strangely freeing. Part of him hesitated, longing to retreat into the shadows, to hide from the truth and preserve the fragile peace he'd fought so hard to attain. But another voice, quieter yet persistent, urged him to confront what lay beneath the surface. The temptation to turn away, to deny the burden, was strong, but he knew deep down that silence would only deepen the wounds. He moved to the edge of the clearing, where a solitary tree stood, its gnarled branches reaching skyward like a silent witness. The morning sun warmed his face as he surveyed the landscape anew, seeing it with fresh eyes. This place was a threshold, a boundary between what had been and what could be, The choice was clear: stay and face the consequences, or leave behind the secrets and step into the unknown. His fingers tightened around the token, a symbol of everything endured and everything he aimed to protect. His heartbeat was steady, not from fear, but from resolve. The doubts, the hesitation that haunted him moments before, began to fade, replaced by a quiet certainty. This was his moment of truth. He took a deliberate step forward, feeling the solid earth beneath his feet. The forest's symphony seemed to hush, as if holding its breath for his decision. Every inhalation carried the scent of pine and dew, reminders that life persisted beyond darkness. The horizon beckoned, promising change but demanding courage. A breeze stirred, gently ruffling leaves and carrying away lingering doubts. The woods around him exhaled, releasing their secrets into the morning air. The path ahead was uncertain, cloaked in possibility and peril. Yet Liam felt a newfound purpose settle within him. The journey was far from over, but hesitation no longer held him back. A faint smile touched his lips as he began to walk, each step affirming his choice. The forest stretched before him, uncharted, mysterious, alive with the potential of new beginnings. Whatever awaited, he was ready to face it, driven by the quiet strength that had grown during these days of shadows and light. The future lay open, and he was finally prepared to meet it head-on. As he stepped into the sunlight, a gentle breeze swept past, stirring the leaves and sweeping away the last remnants of doubt. The woods exhaled once more, their secrets blending into the morning air. The trail ahead remained shrouded in uncertainty, yet Liam's resolve was unshaken. He had learned that courage was born from within, and that facing the truth, no matter how uncomfortable, was the only way forward. He paused briefly, then set his gaze toward the distant hills, feeling the weight of the past lifting. The encounter with himself had shifted him. Now, he carried a new understanding. The secrets he once feared no longer held power over him. Instead, they had become the foundation for his resolve to forge a different path. With a steady breath, Liam pressed onward, the token secure in his hand, a tangible reminder of his journey. The forest's quiet hum accompanied him, a subtle affirmation that he was moving toward a future shaped by choice, courage, and acceptance. The shadows receded behind him, replaced by the promise of dawn and the endless possibilities it brought. His steps grew confident, each one echoing his newfound clarity. The woods around him seemed to whisper encouragement, urging him to embrace what was to come. The horizon stretched wide, inviting him into the unknown, an invitation he accepted without hesitation. The past was behind him, the future awaited, and Liam was ready to meet it, no longer haunted by shadows, but guided by the light of his own resolve.